Welcome back to Monday Musings. Danny Sportswatch here on a day where Kansas will get to celebrate being big dogs. They get their big win on Saturday. They play on Big Monday. Why ESPN, the Big 12, or anybody would decide that a spotlight Big Monday game should be Oklahoma State, Kansas, and that it should be at Allen Fieldhouse, almost guaranteeing that you won't have a good basketball game, I don't know. That's for them to worry about. Kansas gets to play a game and have a spotlight and have the shine on them without much pressure. I'm sure Bill Self will say all the right things and have to turn around in a couple days and all that stuff, but Kansas couldn't really get it any easier for a quick turnaround to celebrate returning to the top of the Big 12, at least to tie for it, as we talked about in segment number 1. Let's check out some of the other college basketball around, and let's do it in the reverse order of good news, because the other two local college basketball teams we focus on really kind of continue themes that have been theirs of late. And for Kansas State, that is hopefully rock bottom. I don't know what they could do basically the rest of the season except win all the games, I guess, in order for things to change in this miserable K-State season. But I think you could say rock bottom would be being down by 19 and never being competitive, really, except for the first 10 minutes or so against a Texas team that has really been an underachieving team. You would figure that most people think that they're being coached by a lame duck coach. They've shown some little signs of life recently, but they were missing 3 starting players. Jericho Sims, their best player. They lost their last road game at Iowa State, which isn't even a very good team, by 29, and they absolutely annihilated K-State. The whole look around K-State just isn't very good right now. You had the dust-up between Cartier-Jara and Bruce Weber in the game the other night. Jara didn't play a very good game in the one at Kansas State the other day. It's on your home floor. It's difficult to summon up any real positives of any sort. And I think Bruce Weber, who is normally brutally frank about the way things are going, is at this point in time figuring that his team is so down, he is not going to, kick them while they're down. He basically is saying they're doing all the right things. They're showing up at practice. They're trying hard. They're giving me effort. All the things that a coach would say when he's trying to, not make the season a complete bit of misery for his players, who he already knows are going through a horrendous time. They've lost 7 straight games. They can't possibly go anywhere in postseason basketball. Just winning a game would be something that would be a positive for K-State right now. And a game on Saturday would be the one that you would figure you might be able to get. You've got a home game. Texas isn't playing very well. They have trouble scoring ordinarily. They were down 3 starters. So what do? You give a bunch of points and you lose. So, and on top of everything else, there was a quote-unquote national spotlight on this game. CBS gets to purchase or take or choose 5 games from the ESPN lineup, and long ago they decided to pick this one. I guess they figured K-State, coming off a Big 12 title, was going to be better than they certainly have proved to be, and everybody always thinks Texas is going to be better than they seem to be under Shaka Smart. So this game was a national TV game. Now, with all the college basketball that's on, it's not as if people just have 3 channels anymore and, there's a college basketball game, I'll watch it. They have myriad other choices, and I doubt the audience was very large outside of the fan bases of Texas and Kansas State, and maybe not even within the fan bases of Texas and Kansas State, but still a true national TV game and that kind of performance. And the thing that we've said over and over again is this season, in some regards, was a bit of a honeymoon season for Kansas State, but I think even though they were picked low in the standings, that around here, we maybe had gotten to the point where Bruce Weber had created enough cachet where you figured, they may say K-State isn't going to be very good, and they did have significant player losses, but maybe they'll rise up and surprise a little bit. Instead, it's been about as bad as you could possibly imagine in every way, shape, and form, especially the fact that not only do they lose, they're not very exciting when they are even playing close games, and certainly Saturday wasn't one of those. And the other bad sign the other day, the 2 best players on the floor for Kansas State in the game were Xavier Sneed and McCall Mayween, and, of course, they are seniors, so they won't be around either. And there have been some signs of life from the younger players, and K-State does have a well-regarded recruiting class, but Just days like that make it seem like the hill is extremely high to climb when you just no-show a game against a mediocre opponent on your floor. Even though they lost to Arkansas on the road, the news is better for Missouri. They basically have hit a patch of play where either they have won or they have played competitive games. Now, the standards are kind of low because Missouri is only 2-3 in the last 5 games, but the 3 games that they have lost have been competitive games. Missouri was good enough on Saturday to roar out to a 13-point lead at Arkansas. Arkansas had been going through a losing streak. They were at one time would have been a quadrant 1 win. Maybe that wasn't the case as this game was being entered into, but Missouri had played well enough that there were some delusions of grandeur that they could start to really get hot and improve their seeding significantly for the SEC tournament. Well, games like this against a similar opponent in Arkansas, even on their floor, the kind you're going to have to win if you're going to get above that 500 mark, which makes you eligible to play in the NIT, and increases perhaps the possibility that you don't have to play on the first day of the SEC tournament, which creates a better Cinderella story possibility, although I think that we've seen enough inconsistency from Missouri to say that that really is kind of a dream. But they, unlike K-State, took a bad situation, a season that seemed to be heading in absolutely the wrong direction, and shot a little life into it. And the other part is that some of their younger players have really found some stride, particularly Xavier Pinson, who has been on a great run. He was good, not great the other day, and that sophomore class has got some good players in it. Almost all the significant players on this team can return to Missouri. In this day and age of the transfer portal and guys who seemingly for no reason whatsoever decide to test professional basketball, you never know. But there seems to be at least the promise that next season can bring something, and frankly, it probably has to bring something. Another season for Missouri like this season, and you have to say that Cuonzo Martin, whatever his contract status is, however much money it's going to cost you, or legalities you'll have to go through, would totally be on the hot seat, and rightfully so. And I've said it before, and unfortunately, you have to say it again, that his arc of job at Missouri is looking quite a bit like the other jobs that he has had, where his teams have not been terrible, but they've not been good. They've not produced the kind of postseason tournament play that you would expect and want. But as I said, to his credit for this year, at least they found some life in a season that looked like it was headed in completely the wrong direction. But they need to finish it off in at least decent fashion, win a couple of games. They play at Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt has been an extremely struggling team this year, the last-place team in the SEC. Yes, they've lost some tough games. They lost another one the other day against Georgia. But certainly that will be kind of a key game in this setting for Missouri, because it's hard to say that you actually found a vein of form and things were looking positive if you go out on the road and you lose to the last place team in the league. Now, the road certainly has been problematical for Missouri. They're 1-9 on the road and they haven't won a conference game there. So that certainly provides no guarantees that they're going to go and do something special. But the signs are certainly better, at least when you mirror them up against Kansas State for the Missouri Tigers. A little bit of signs of life for them. Well, the rarest of things in sports in the 2000s came up the other day on Saturday night, and boxing had themselves a spotlight. A big fight. Not MMA, actual boxing, pugilism with gloves and not an octagon. Of course, it was Tyson Fury against Deontay Wilder, and this fight had a lot of cachet. The first fight was a very entertaining one. It ended in a controversial draw. They also had the prospect that the loser of this fight gets to call for a rematch if he likes. I don't know if Wilder will be in the mood for it after what happened on Saturday night, as he was knocked about the ring by Tyson Fury. Fury is a fascinating story. First of all, that is his actual name. It's almost hard to believe that somebody named Tyson Fury, which is something that a Hollywood scriptwriter would dream up for the name for a boxer, actually is his real name, but it is. And he obviously won 3 different crowns, then went through a serious bout with mental illness and alcoholism and extreme weight gain. But he comes back from all that, and he's known as a defensive fighter despite his hugely imposing physical stature. I mean, you talk about heavyweights, and not just heavy, but large men, 6'7" and over 250 for each man, and Tyson Fury upwards of 300 pounds and 6'9". And, of course, because he's been somebody who has carried a lot of weight in his life, and when you lose a lot of weight, you kind of end up looking like Tyson Fury. Now, he's tall, but he hardly, in this age of incredibly chiseled athletes, and certainly Deontay Wilder fits the bill, he just kind of looks like a regular pasty guy down at the beach when he enters the ring. Yes, I know he's a big man, but his physique kind of looks that way. But he put on a tremendous show, and if Wilder wants a rematch, he will be an underdog, and will have that going for him. He alluded to a lot of distractions away from the ring that caused him to perhaps not have the legs that he needed in this particular fight. He was not happy with his corner for throwing in the towel, which they did in the 7th round in the TKO. Almost everybody agreed that it was the right move. Probably Wilder, really deep in his heart of hearts, thought it was the right move. He couldn't even really say. He had to try 3 times to say that his corner had thrown in the towel, which kind of affirmed the fact that he shouldn't have been out there fighting anymore. But it's been so rare, so rare. I remember back in the the 80s and 90s when you had, particularly the 80s, when you had a lot of big fights, middleweight fights, and Hagler, Sugar Ray Leonard, and even the heavyweight ranks had some stars, and that's been completely taken over by MMA. But at least for one night, boxing had a spotlight, and Tyson Fury made it stick. The only thing that was a downer in this particular fight, and it was a gross downer to say the least, is that Fury, who had said he wanted to taste Wilder's blood in the ring, well, when Wilder was bleeding at one point, he, with a flickering tongue, tasted his blood right off his shoulder, and that, it was gross, it was creepy, and not a good look whatsoever. He clearly was doing it on purpose to back up what he said, that he wanted to taste the blood, but on a night where boxing actually had a good spotlight, certainly that marred it, at least to me anyway. I don't want to see that image. I can't unsee that image that I saw there, but boxing has a star right now, and the thing that makes it interesting as well is I do listen to a lot of radio that emanates from England, and see some sports shows from England because I follow the English Premier League soccer fairly closely, and so I listen to radio coverage from basically the equivalent of ESPN, Talk Sport, in England. And in England, boxing is still a big thing, and he is a big, big star there. So he becomes an international star, and obviously this fight in Las Vegas kind of re-energized boxing. Will they be able to capitalize on it, cut into the popularity of MMA? I doubt it. I think the more short-term attention span fights that you get in MMA and the more brutal nature of it probably make it that much more appealing, obviously make it that much more appealing, but it would be nice for me to see a more quote-unquote civilized sport, which is funny to say when it's boxing, get back into the mainstream of sports attention, and at least for the time being, Tyson Fury has done that. Those are your Monday musings, Danny Sports Watch for this Monday, and stay tuned all during the week for various different things here at DannyKlingskill.com. This is every other Wednesday that we talk music with Tim Finn. On Wednesday, you get your Kansas City profiles. On Friday, get all kinds of different stuff thrown in blogs and essays and everything else right here at DannyKlingskill.com in the Reasonably Irreverent podcast. And on Mondays, my thoughts on the sports week. On Monday Musings, Danny Sports Watch, right here.